I forgot to click on record. I have clicked on recording. So I'll come again. So during this theory classes, you will be learning these all topics. These are theory topics. Once we complete with theory part, then we will move on to the practical sessions. Okay. Once we complete this theory part, then we will move on to the practical sessions. And today we are going to cover P2P and O2C transaction cycle or transaction process in theory. P2P, it is stands for procure to pay, or you can say procurement to payment. Procurement is part of supply chain management process, and payment is part of finance process. So supply chain management employees will be different than financial. Like financial consultant will not be working on supply chain management. There will be a different consultant who will work and deal under supply chain management. Even as an end user, there will be a different, like in supply chain management, order processing, inventory management, okay, manufacturing, this all comes under supply chain management. When it comes to finance, in finance, like invoice processing, payment processing, this all process comes under. Okay, so let us understand even supply chain process, because having process knowledge is good actually. Though we are not learning supply chain part, but let us understand the supply chain management part also. See, basically, procurement team gets a requirement. Okay, what is procurement actually? Procurement is a process of purchasing any item that is required in the business. If business required any item, business have to follow some process, or business have some principles. Business have to follow those process, and business have to start and complete the transaction. So let's understand how the flow works. So any department in the organization required any item to buy, they will first create. I mean, let's say for example, HR department required 5 laptops, or some department or some division of the business or business is required 5 laptops. So all employees who works under the business will not have authorities to purchase whatever business is required, right? If business provide authority to all employees, then employees whenever they require anything, they just go and buy it, right? That's not the business process. So in business, there will be a set of employees who will work on particular activities, right? Procurement is also one of the activity. Procurement is one of the process in that there are different activities business performs, and whenever business required any item, the department or the cost center or the division who required an item, or the store who required an item, they have to create a requisition. And that requisition process is like showing business what is required in business. Okay. uh, and this requisition can be internal and external. Internal is something like internally they are fulfilling the requirement, like they are manufacturing internally and fulfilling the business requirement, or the items are already there in the warehouse and internally they have to move. So this is called internal requisition. External requisition, when business want to buy it from outside. Okay. So once requisition is created, business required to purchase items based on the requisition. The purchase order need to be processed, right? See, if I know the supplier, if I know the supplier from whom my business always buy, if I know the supplier from whom business have to buy, and then employees can directly create a purchase order and send it to suppliers, because that supplier or vendor is already in relation with business, and they are supplying items, so we don't require to ask for any information. We can just order it and vendor fulfill our requirement. But you're ordering for the first time, or you're ordering to the new suppliers, let's say, or you want to find suppliers who supply the items, then order cannot be processed directly. There will be a request for quotation. Okay, business request for quotations. uh, to whom they request? Suppliers or vendors. Business requests quotations from the vendors, like 2 3 vendors they select, and they ask for quotation. What information they send to the, or they ask to the supplier, or they send and they ask to the supplier the items business is required and what price they are expecting, right? And how much quantity business is expecting. All this need to be mentioned on the request for quotation and send it to the supplier. And once supplier send quotation, see, request for quotation, it cannot be particular to one supplier. One quotation can be created and send it to multiple suppliers. But when you are creating, once quotation is requested, company receives quotation from the vendor, right? Once quotations are received, that quotation need to be processed with the vendor name, so that we have that information. This quotation is received from so and so vendor. This quotation is received from so and so vendor. This quotation is received from so and so vendor. So all 3 4 vendors quotation need to be compared and pick the best quotation and create a purchase order. So here in Oracle, mostly system does this work. So once employee creates 3 4 quotations, it will arrange the sequence, the best based on the requirement. Best quotation stands for as 1, 2, and 3. So you can, but it's your option which quotation to pick and order. And once quotation is processed, then order need to be processed. Purchase order. That purchase order we process, business process to send it to the supplier. And once order is processed, that information goes to supplier. And after order is processed, what next? Once order is processed, once order goes to the supplier, we get goods or services based on the quotation we have, sorry, purchase order we business have sent, right? So for goods, we create GRN. Services, they will not be GRN. For goods, GRN need to be created, and this GRN is nothing but goods receipt note. We are sending a receipt. We are processing receipt saying that we have received goods, right? We are processing receipt saying that we have received so and so goods based on the purchase order, and then transfer to the organization. Inventory organization, where see, every store or every office will have some warehouse, right? So business have to transfer the items to the warehouse where it is required, or to the inventory organization for that particular location. So here process ends. Sorry guys. So here procurement process ends. Quickly I'll discuss again. As a part of supply chain management, when business required any item, requisition will be created, and that requisition, based on that requisition, request for quotation is required when we are buying for the first time, or we are finding supplier in the market. And once quotation, if not new supplier, regular supplier, then directly purchase order can be processed based on the requisition. And once quotations are received, those we need to process, business need to process those quotations in the system. And once quotations are processed, order will be created, based on the best quotation existing in the system or created in the system. And then based once business receives an item, GRN need to be processed. And once GRN is processed and items are there in the like destination where it has to receive, then that those items will transfer to the inventory organization or the organization where actually it has to go. Next, we will move on to the finance process. In finance, in finance, in finance, the first process is PO invoice, or it can be non-PO invoice also. For non-PO invoice, this process will not be there. See, every invoice we receive from the supplier for payment process is not a PO invoice, right? So some suppliers who send invoice, like for example, we are getting a electricity bill, internet bill, and that you're processing as invoice in AP. They are, I mean, those invoices are non-PO invoices. You did not create any order. It's a monthly bill that you receive, or it's a recurring bill that we receive, right? That business receives, right? So that order is not required. That those invoices called as non-PO invoices. So PO and non-PO invoices. See, once let's talk about non-PO invoice. It's very simple. Invoice receives in the finance department process invoice. But PO invoice, here also finance department receives an invoice from the vendor, and finance team process that invoice in AP system. Why finance team process invoice in AP system? Because based on that invoice information, AP is going to process payments, right? AP team is going to process payments. So once invoice is created, can business directly process the payment? No, right? Somebody join your name, good name, your good name. I've muted you guys. Sorry, the person who have joined just now. Please write your name. It's showing waiting for name. Please write your name. Okay. So once PO invoice is received in the business, do you think a business process payment without any cross check or without anything, like once invoice received, purchase order invoice is received or purchase invoice is received, company just process the payment? No, right? Company have to verify that invoice details billed by vendor is based on the order we have processed and received the item, right? Isn't it? For that, Oracle is provided the matching concept, matching process. We have two-way, three-way, and four-way matching. Two-way matching, see, when invoice is received, invoice, when, see, for each supplier, you can have a different matching concept. Okay. So let's say for any supplier, you have set up invoice process based on two-way match. Then what system does every time system do matching? Invoice system matches with purchase order. See, there are two activities involved in this matching. That's why two-way matching it is called as invoice and order, purchase order and purchase invoice. These two activities are involved. So what system do? System will try to match order details. System tries to match order details, sorry, invoice details with the order details. Let's say if order is billed 10 units, each unit for $100 and total $1,000, and that is PO, and invoice is also billed with the same information. Let's say then simply payment can be processed based on this information. Okay. If anything mismatch like units billed 15 or price billed like not 100, like $110, then we hold invoice for the payment process. In Oracle system places invoice on hold, say giving that notice like why it is not completing the invoice process, and based on which business is going to call to the vendor and get the information and get the right invoice to process, right? So this is two-way match, and three-way match is here three activities are involved in three-way match. Invoice matches with purchase order and GRN. Three activities. See here additional activities GRN matching. So how it does, see why GRN is required, because see basically for services you can directly do two-way match. Okay. Let's say for example business for business somebody is providing trainings. Okay, so that is a service, right? Or any service, most of the services. So order creates for the service, like you require training for 10 days, uh, and each day is so and so dollars, and invoice is billed the same, then you can process. Okay, so there will not be any GRN. But when it comes to items, there will be a GRN, right? So for item purchase, business have to follow three-way match, not two-way match. In three-way match, system also check GRN. What system check in GRN? How many goods are received? Let's say 8 received. Ordered 10, but received only 8. So invoice need to bill with 8. If invoice is billed with 10, then business hold that invoice. It's kind of holding invoice and asking vendor to bill a right invoice.
Uh, may
Okay.
I have one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Naresh. Uh, that is also
Naresh,
one
you're the
case,
same
but
person who joined. You're the same person who joined last demo session, right? Because that
yeah,
time,
first day.
yeah, because you
Yeah,
have written the complete name, so that's why I got confused. Yeah, that
okay,
time
no
it was
problem.
only Naresh.
Uh,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I have one doubt. Just now you told us GRNA we received 8, but we billed 10. So the
Mhm.
difference between PO and invoice 2 variation. So you told us to AR need to raise a credit memo for 2. But in case
Yes,
we have one scenario here in AP side, so the person who are working in GRNA, they need to work with OTR team order to remittance. OTR means uh, they
yes,
they so we have to email to them respective team to update the delivery transactions in Oracle subsystem. Then they
yes,
will, as per our details, they will update the two receipts in the Oracle system. Then after that, it will equal PO equals to GRNA, GRNA equals to like PO equals to invoice, invoice equals to physical
yes,
receipts of goods. Then it will be
yes,
eligible for payment.
yes, yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So yeah, that I got it. Okay. So basically, what happens, if we are not, as I told in the beginning, if you, I don't know, you have joined early or not. What I said, supply chain management, we will not get into the detail of process. So that is why I'm not getting what process happens in the system. That as I'm experienced, that I know what workaround business do for this to overcome. I'm just right now I'm explaining how system holds the invoice, why the reason it will hold invoice, and and it will notify to the supplier also that this is what they have built. See, in case of build, then build 8. and PO is not matching, then we can ask uh, procurement department or purchase order to make it 8. But what if this is billed more than the GRN? In that case, we ask vendor to send the new invoice, right? Because we can't process 10 units where we have received actual 8 units, right? So we have to receive the invoice with the right, with the, see, invoice, it doesn't matter PO what it will have, but it matters for the system what GRN is having. So PO items can be modified based on GRN, okay? But invoice items or invoice quantity that is billed, that cannot be modified based on PO, right?
Yes.
It has to pay as it is vendor billed, right? Or we need to ask for
Yes.
the new invoice to send with the right information so that company can pay, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So yes, Naresh, yeah, you have experience, so probably you understand that process. I don't know other, but yes, that will happen anyway. Once we go to the system, we process invoice and explain you the PO, where to put the number and where to match. That time you can see, okay, others, those who are not experienced. Yeah, but for now, just understand like if it is built in this way, then system holds the invoice and it gives information to the user why it is placed on hold, and then process. I mean, notify to the vendor, and then decision need to be made, and then proceed for the payment based on the decision is made by system and sorry, business. And if it is build 8, like Naresh was saying, uh, procurement team responsibility that based on the GRN, they have to modify the PO details so that it can be processed. Invoice can be processed. Okay. So this is three-way match. Here, three activities are involved in three-way match and four-way match. And yes, while paying the invoice, it has to match. If it is not matching, then we have some accounting. Uh, okay, so that accounting I'll explain once we get into the accounting part or once we get into the system. So amount, when especially when amount is not matching, there will be a variance account to process. Okay, so how to process variance account, that we will discuss later. Now we are just understanding the process, not accounting in this P2P. And four-way match here, PO invoice need to match with purchase order, GRN, as well as inspection. There will be an inspection. Okay. Inspection is kind of like, let's say, material ordered like 1000 units. So that inspection will be done. And once inspection is done, then they will change the status as inspection is done. And then invoice can be processed. And the other case is like, especially for assets, it is very useful because for inventory, even inventory material, even they don't follow, it's okay. Based on three-way match, they can complete. But for assets, especially what kind of assets? Assets that takes time to install in company or set up in company. Like it takes 2 months, 3 months time. So business, and for that 2 3 months, you will not take a responsibility of that asset, right? It will be under vendor control only because vendor is going to set up and provide the uh, complete output, right? So in that case, after providing, I mean, while providing output, there will be some inspection. So that inspection happens based on which company can process the payment. So four-way match, you will not see using more. The more useful matchings are three-way and two-way match, and three-way match is more, actually more than two-way match. As I said, two-way match most of the business follow only for services because for that GRN will not be there. So because of GRN, system uh, will not be able to complete the process if three-way match you are following, and if there is no GRN, then system will not be able to complete the invoice process. That's why company follow two-way match for the services. Yes, for the goods, company will follow three-way match more. And four-way match you will see rarely using in business. And in my experience, I have seen for material and inventory material and for assets following four-way match, and especially for inspection need to be done for that. That's fine. And once invoice is clearly processed and everything in place, it is ready to make payment. Then finance team complete the payment process. Invoice is clean in that case. Okay, if it is not clean, then it will go on hold. Business have to see why it is on hold. Business have to take a decision, and then once invoice is reprocessed, or invoice information is corrected based on the information received in the business. Then once it is clean to process payment, then payment will process for every invoice. It's not just invoices processed, though it is on hold, just release from the hold manually and process payment. No, that will not work in business. It has to go with the flow only. Like decision need to be made and why it is on hold. Release it based on it has to release, and then complete the payment process. And once payments are processed, the payment process we have like quick and manual payment process that you will see in the system directly. Right now, just payment process, and payment process electronic and check payment process we have, that also you will see in the system. For electronic, there will be a payment system to follow, and it will print a uh, electronic payment document, or whatever information that comes as output that can be transferred to the bank or the system that process payments to the vendor, right? And check payment process, it will print a document based on which business will send checks to the vendors. Once payments are processed, what next? Those payments need to be reconciled. Reconciliation is required. So in
Cash
reconciliation,
and bank.
yeah, bank statement. You have question, Naresh?
No, no. We have to do the reconciliations in cash reconciliation. So why?
Yes,
Because
cash management. We
what?
call it as cash
Yeah.
management.
What is debited from the bank and what is created from our end or
Yes,
organization
yes.
AP.
So whatever payments are processed in AP, so those payments from where it will go? It will go from the bank only, right? See, no company is following payment process through cash, right? No companies follow.
Yes, it. Yeah, yeah.
When they are paying cash, sometime they will withdraw from the bank, and it has to shown in the bank, right? It's not like you get cash from somewhere and you're showing that in the system. That will come as a black money in business, right? I mean, it is not a white transaction; it's a black transaction. So every transaction that is processed in AP need to show in bank in debit. So what business do? Business to make sure it is reflecting in the bank, and to once it is reflecting in the bank, they can close AP transaction. So they will reconcile with AP payment, bank statement with AP payments, and once it is okay, once it is matching, then they will close the payment, and here payment process completes. And once payment is completed, this P2P process completes. And during this P2P process, there are other activities also involved. Like for example, while processing payment, discounts we process when vendor is giving discount. If any advance is paid, advance will be matched during the invoice process itself. Whatever payments are processed for the advance, so those payments, advance payments, need to knock off, right? So that matching also we do during the invoice process itself. And while processing payment, if any interest is applying, I mean any interest paying to the vendor, that interest need to be processed during the payment, right? And other than this, we have debit and credit memos. Both are negative in AP. and debit memos we process when company returns goods to the vendor, and credit memo when we receive for the returns, when we receive a credit memo from the vendor, that we process here as a credit memo. Okay, so we have these all other transactions, I mean, other activities involved in this P2P transaction that we will discuss directly in the system. But this is the main cycle of P2P. Other activities are involved when and there it is required. But this is a standard process. Other activities may involve or may not involve based on the requirement. Right. And some invoices that are processed, I mean, some invoices that are asset invoices, those asset invoices need to transfer to the asset module. Even that we do from AP. So these all you will see directly in the system, not here in Excel. So clear about P2P. We are done with P2P, and about P2P accounting entries. Tomorrow we'll discuss. As I said, basic accounting we will discuss tomorrow. We'll discuss that in the next session. Now we'll move on to the O2C. The O2C, it's the opposite process. In P2P, we deal with vendor. In O2C, we deal with customers. I mean, business deal with customers. So what happens in O2C? In O2C, order, cash, order, supply chain management, cash, finance. In supply chain management, order entry, whatever order received from the vendor, that order, sorry, customers, that order need to be entered in the system. And once order is entered, book order. And once order is booked, reservation of order. See, it's very simple. Like if you shop in Amazon, the same thing, like order you search and you pick the item that is required and you add to the cart. So that is kind of like order entry, and you are booking and reservation. You are doing reservation in the cart, right? So once you reserve, the item will be reduced from the warehouse, right? I mean, it will be there in the warehouse, but it will show one number is reduced if you have picked one item, right? Same process here also. And once order is reserved, then pick and release. Once the order is once the order is reserved, warehouse will pick and release the item. And once pick and release is completed, you can say it will go outside of the business. It will be in shipping, and once it is shipped, it is like item delivered or item shipped. In Fusion, we say shipped. Okay, item, or you can say product. The product, whatever reserved with the customer name, that will pick, pack, and release. And once it is released, it will be shipped to the customer. And once it is shipped to the customer, see, nowadays, once order is processed, there will be a auto process to create invoice. Okay, and invoice will be sent with uh, like item itself. When product itself, when product is sending to the customer, invoice will send along with product itself. So earlier there was like earlier in the sense few years ago, like after customer receives an item, I mean with product, business used to send like delivery note, not an invoice, not a invoice for which payment is required. Right? Once once customer accept that item and accept that, say, signs that delivery note, then based on which invoice used to process. But now invoice will be created and sent to the vendor during the uh, item, during the product shipping itself. but AR invoice need to process. We say AR transaction actually, sales transaction. So once AR invoice is processed, what is next? Next, based on the invoice is processed, receipt need to be processed, right? So see, we are creating AR invoice because we need amount from the customer, right? So AR is nothing but account receivable. So account receivable we are showing in the system because we need to receive that from so and so customer, right? Once customer pays, we create receipt. That receipt need to be processed in the system, saying that we have received amount from the customer. It can be partial or full amount. So whatever receipt need to create and apply to the invoice to clear that so and so amount from the AR account. And once receipt is processed, if it is electronic receipt, then remittance is not required. But if it is check or cash receipt, then it has to go for remittance. Remittance is nothing but like, to say in simple, I mean, those who don't understand this technology, Oracle technology terms, it's nothing but like we are showing in system, these receipts are deposited in so and so bank account. Okay, it's kind of deposit. So we are showing in the system whatever checks and cash received deposited in so and so bank account. That is called this remittance. And once remittance is processed, here reconciliation. The reconciliation happens on receipt, not on the remittance. Once you process remittance, receipt status will change to remittance. I mean remitted. Okay. Why it will happen at receipt level? Why not remittance level? Remittance is not a transaction. It is just we are showing in system that these receipts are deposited in so and so bank account, right? Receipt is actually the one showing that we have received an amount, and every receipt will not go to the remittance process, right? So that is the reason reconciliation will happen. Bank statement, all credits need to reconcile with receipts, whatever we have received from the customer. And here the process ends, and here there is no control like we have a two-way, three-way, four-way match. Here there is no concept like that because here we are processing based on the transaction we have processed, order we have processed. But there we are
Yeah, sir.
paying based on what vendor is paid. Sorry, vendor send item, right? So AP team need to get the confirmation. So here that is not required because business process all this transaction based on the customer order. Yeah, Naresh, go ahead.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking. Because here in order to cash, whether the buyer ordered goods are received or not. So irrespective of that matter, they will process the this
Invoice.
yeah in order to cash. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
I didn't
So
work,
they will
but
not
I
be.
am understanding. Yeah,
Yeah. So in AP we have a control because we are paying, right? So when business receives an invoice, uh, they can't pay blindly because it that invoice information can be fraud, right? But in AR you're not receiving invoice to match, right? So you are processing invoice based on the order is processed, irrespective of vendor accepted or not. Sorry, customer accepted or not. So you may get question, what if customer don't accept? If customer don't accept, you can create credit note, right? You can create credit note and you can clear the invoice if required.
then after that, it's a complete reversing the process, right?
Yeah, complete
Yeah,
reversing the
the
process.
entries and all. Yeah,
Yes, yes. Once you create credit note, it's nothing but we are reversing an invoice as well as the products, because while you are creating credit note, you will mention the item details also, right, that are used. So even that will get reversed. You got it, Naresh?
yeah. Then after that, it's nullifying the entire transactions. The
Yes,
invoice
entire
equals
transaction.
to yeah,
Yes,
great. Yeah, thank you, sir.
you're welcome. So that's what happens in O2C. So O2C is more automation actually. P2P there will be more manual interaction in P2P, but in O2C, it is more automation. I mean, business don't do it. Yeah, order entry and order book, this will happen manually. But once from AR perspective, creating invoice based on the order details, automatically it happens. But we can't. Uh, we are not going to see the auto process. We will see the manual process. Auto process required interfaces need to be developed. We'll see the manual process. Okay, and we required some technical support for auto process to develop, and this is functional training purely, so we will see the manual process. When in real time you will not develop the auto process, right? Technical department will take care of that. But yes, you need to know the functionality, that if you know how to process manually also, that is enough. Because knowing functionality, no matter it is manual processing or auto processing, you need to know the functionality, like how it works. Yeah. So, any questions today? I'll close session here. And guys, all of you guys, please join on time. 7:30 a.m. our session starts. Join at 7:30 a.m. so that we can close by 8:30 sharp. Because even I work, so I have to log in and start working from 9 a.m. Make sure you join at 7:30. And any questions? If no questions, I'll close session here, and we are going to meet tomorrow. And you will get this recorded video on your email from Institute. Okay. Tomorrow we'll discuss about accounting entries. And before I discuss about accounting entries, some are from non-accounting background maybe. So we'll discuss basic accounting and then accounting entries of this P2P and O2C. 15 minutes we'll discuss about accounting entries, and next 45 minutes we'll discuss about P2P and O2C accounting entries.
Sir, do you
Yeah,
have a mail IDs? My personal mail IDs?
you can send it to Institute. See, probably they have, because while doing inquiry, you may have provided mail IDs, right? So I don't send recorded video. You will get it from the Institute. So
Okay.
if they don't have, they will ask you guys, or you can communicate with them. They will send you the recorded video.
Okay.
Okay. So that's it, my dear friends. Bye for today, and tomorrow at 7:30 a.m.